thank you so much for inviting me here. I've been here several times. We like coming to St. Leonard's. Um, so I was going to talk about heart health in February, but someone else came and talked, so I talk about stress today. Who's stressed? Okay, so this is a totally relevant topic here. Now, stress affects everybody. And what people don't realize is, there's diet, exercise, smoking. There's all sorts of impacts on your health. But sleep, which I'm not going to talk about tonight, and stress are probably equally important to any of those other factors I just mentioned to your overall health. If you're really stressed out, you cannot be totally healthy. A great example is my brother-in-law was on 3 blood pressure medications with uncontrolled blood pressure. He actually then changed jobs and they started getting dizzy. And then his doctor stopped 1 medication, still dizzy, stopped another medication, still dizzy, stopped 3rd medication. Now he has normal blood pressure off of 3 medications. And when you talk to him, they go, what was the difference? And he goes, I hated my job. I felt like my partners were stealing money from me. So every day at work was incredibly stressful. Once he got a new situation, less stress, blood pressure became normal. And this is something we see all the time. If you're stressed out, it's hard to be healthy. It's hard to sleep. It's hard to lose weight. It's hard to do anything. Now, stress does lead to growth. We want to have some stress. I like this little cartoon here. So, they say what doesn't, kill you makes you stronger. But if you are chronically, constantly stressed, suppose your kid is disabled, suppose you don't have enough money, or you're unemployed, or suppose you're taking care of your spouse who's chronically ill. That means you are stressed 24/7 all the time, and that's not healthy. When you exercise and then recover, that's a good stress. When you sleep and then wake up, that's on and off stress. When you eat and you fast and don't eat, that's a good on and off stress. When you're chronically, constantly stressed, that's not good for you. Now, the first important thing, though, I think is positive outlook. Who believes that in positive outlook, positivity? Okay, about a little more than half. That's good. But I love this quote here. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. All right. People that are successful think like, I'm going to make it. It's going to happen. People that are failing all the time, it's not going to work out. It's not going to happen again. I'm going to fail. The analogy I use is if you want to date the really pretty girl, you're going to have to think that she's going to say yes when you ask her. If you think she's going to say no, then that's a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're not even going to ask. Or you're going to ask in such a horrible way, she's going to definitely turn you down. Okay? So you have to have a positive outlook in your life here. Now, does anyone know what all these numbers and dates mean? This is important. This is the time of the mile and the date when Sir Roger Bannister, finally broke the 4-minute barrier in the mile. At that time, it was thought to be impossible to go sub 4 minutes. Now, the crazy thing is after he did it, a couple weeks later, his greatest competitor broke the 4-minute barrier. A couple months later, they had the race of the century. They both went sub 4, and he got the world record again. Since this time, about 380 people have gone under the 4-minute barrier. The point being is everyone thinks it's impossible until somebody does it. And then people go, that's obvious, you can do it. Like going to the moon, you go, no one can go to the moon. It's technologically impossible. I think we went there 8 times. So once it happens, it becomes much easier. And that's a great thing I want you to think about. Little successes build bigger successes, and you get a big snowball. So it's always going to start little and grow big. And now another thing to think about is the 40% rule. Does anyone know where this comes from? Okay, this is a Navy SEAL mantra. The SEALs go, when you think you're totally physically done, you're only at 40%. Because your mind is set up to protect yourself. And it's like, I'm going to hold something in reserve in case I need it. And anyone here a big biker, runner, endurance person? Okay, that's okay. I love running. There's a runner back there. Okay, so what happens when you go on a long run is you always run somewhere and you run back home. So to really make yourself run longer, you just got to run longer out there because you know you're going to have to come back. All right. But what's interesting is the more you push yourself, you realize even though I'm really struggling, I'm hurting, I actually made it. And this goes back to this mantra. You have a lot more reserve than you think you have. And we've seen this many times when in accidents or when things just have to get done, people can accomplish a lot more than you think they can. Now, who believes that the mind is really powerful? Mind is super powerful. Here's an incredible experiment. It's called OxyRBX. So they had two groups of subjects that were training to run a 3K run. One group got injected with OxyRBX, the other group did not, and they're both training. OxyRBX was told to these people that it was a weak epocrite or epogen antigen. Epogen is what your kidneys make to make your body make more red blood cells. In the old days, epogen is what the bike riders used to dope themselves with to cheat, to get more oxygen carrying capacity and do better on the long bike rides. In this study, OxyRBX was saline. It was nothing. So these guys got injected thinking that they're getting a slight advantage. Now, what's incredible here is the group in the placebo group that got the fake shots, they actually got faster. Their time got less compared to the control group. Everyone got a little bit better because they were training. But the guys taking the fake shots actually got better. The other really crazy thing is when they surveyed the people getting the shots go, running was easier. There was nothing different in what they were doing. It was a total placebo effect. It was totally their state of mind that made them feel like running was easier and actually made them go faster. Okay, thinking positive. I'm not going to bore you with all this, but there's been lots of studies looking at positive and negative outlook. Basically, if you're a pessimist, you can have about a 30 to 40% increased risk of having cardiac events, heart attack, stroke, death. Now, if you think positive as outlook, it can be as little as 10%, that's the last study, or the impact can be as big as 73% decreased risk of having cardiac events. If you're a pessimist, you may have a 30% increased risk of having cardiac events. If you're an optimist, you can cut your risk by maybe up to 77%. If you take the average, it's about 50%, to be honest. But the point being, and you see this, people that are complaining all the time, miserable, you look at them and go, there's a reason you're miserable. And people that are happy-go-lucky no matter what, you go, yeah, I know that whatever happens to that person, they're going to do okay. And it's really a state of mind. It's an outlook. That's really, really important. I don't know how many people read the Bible, but this is one of my favorite verses. I'm going to skip to the bottom underlying part in Matthew 6. And which of you by being anxious can add a single hour to the span of his life? No one. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble on its own. Worry is not going to fix anything. For people like Mark Twain, this is a great quote. Worry is like paying a debt you don't owe. All right? Don't be going into debt, wasting your energy and time on stuff you don't need to. There's another great quote where he talks about, I've known a great many troubles, but most of them have never come true. So we imagine a horrible world, and we spend a lot of our time focusing on that, preparing for it, and it was a waste of time because it never occurs. Viktor Frankl, anyone know who Viktor Frankl is? Yeah, he was a Jewish psychiatrist who got taken to a concentration camp in Germany and survived the war. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, incredible book. But here's a couple of quotes. Between stimulus and response is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. The fact that we can choose how we look at any outcome or any situation, that's where our power is. That's where our freedom is. They can drag you to prison. They can deport you from this country. They can do a lot of things. They can tax you to death. But they can't make you unhappy unless you agree and choose to be unhappy. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Just because you've been dealt a really crummy deck of cards, or you got a bunch of lemons, does not mean that your life has to suck. You have to choose which way you're going to respond and live your life. Now, stress. This is all great talking about stress, but isn't a biological way that we understand how stress hurts the body? The fact that I'm showing this slide means yes. So before, we really didn't know. And so this one lab hypothesized that when you get stressed, your midbrain turns on, the amygdala, which is like the reptilian midbrain that people talk about. That sends stress hormones to your bone marrow. Your bone marrow starts making cytokines, inflammatory cells, and that goes to your vasculature and causes like plaque buildup, injury that leads to heart attack, stroke, death. Now, so they tested this theory, and guess what? They were right. So in this column here, this is an unstressed person. The midbrain's not activated. Here are these little horns. This is a functional PET scan that actually lights up when different parts of your brain are activated. Stressed people have activation in their midbrain. Unstressed people, look at their aorta, their big blood vessel, very little red. It's not inflamed, it's not irritated. Here in the stressed out person, there's a bunch around the aorta. The artery is actually irritated, inflamed. Now look at the spinal bone marrow. Here, very little uptake. The bone marrow is not turned on. Here in the stressed out person, it's lit up like a Christmas tree. So stress turns on your stress center in your brain. That sends a signal to your bone marrow to make stress hormones. Those go to your vasculature and mess up the artery walls, which lead to plaque buildup, blockage, heart attack, stroke, etc. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, and actually just recently another lab did the same set of experiments to confirm that these guys weren't lying, cheating, or making up the data. So that's actually good to know. What is one of the most common ways for people to get stressed out? There's two big ones nowadays. One is watching the news. And in every study they've done, watching the news is a negative. The other thing is social media. So I don't know how many people have some form of social media. Okay, I love social media, but a lot of people, they hate it, but they're still on it. And they hate seeing people, their life is great, my life's not, or there's my enemy who's living great, or some troll is making really rude comments on my post. So there's lots of negativity here. Now, one of the most important things here, let me see which one is it. Social media is on the bottom. That causes stress 14% of people. Watching, reading, and listening to news is 40%. And the reason social media and the news are so bad for you is why? Yeah, but there's a couple layers to that. One is in the old days, we had guys like, you may not like Dan Rather, but you have Cronkite, Radner, and these guys just read news. They would not editorialize. Nowadays, almost everyone's a talking head, and they don't say it, but they're all editorialists, and they're all trying to put a spin on an angle. And we listen to these people like it's the facts. But the one thing, CNN, to get viewership, they talk negatively about Trump because that makes people want to tune in. Fox News talks negatively about Biden because that engages and enrages the Republicans. So both sides are using the other side to get viewership. Very interesting, after Trump won the first term back in 2016, CNN viewership dropped 40% in one night. Because at that point now, there's nothing to complain about anymore because you won. So think about that. Now, the social media, you guys have probably read this, the social media algorithms on Instagram and Facebook are meant to do what? They want to keep you on the thread as long as possible. The best way to do that is to get you mad. And the tagline there is the best way to engage someone is to enrage them. So they will feed things you don't like and like to get you to not leave their site. So think about that. So the whole algorithm, the whole purpose is to keep you there and to keep you emotionally jacked up. Now, this is another interesting study. So this is a CDC map of heart attacks by county, and it's overlaid by mean words on Twitter, which is now the platform called X. And what you can see on the left, this is a CDC map. The red, the more deaths, more red. And then when they mined Twitter for mean words and mean tweets, look at the red and look at the deaths. And what they found is there's a really high correlation of people dying more in counties where there's more mean tweets on Twitter. Now, that does not prove causation, like being a jerk and tweeting mean things means you're going to die of a heart attack, but it does speak to a general kind of atmosphere environment that you live in. If you live in a really toxic environment, you're probably going to have more bad outcomes. Now, this is very interesting here. Now, this is looking at hostility. And I'm just going to summarize this real quickly. Basically, this first group of columns is stroke, and heart attack, heart failure, dying, and then any event is the last row of columns. And basically, the more hostile you are in the survey, the more likely you are to have an event. Now, people are interested in this for one reason. The idea of like, don't keep it in, let it out. Who believes in that? Like, you shouldn't keep things pent up. You should just let it out.
That's hard to do.
Okay. Yeah, it depends. Yeah. Now, here's another study looking at this. Outbursts of anger as a trigger for acute cardiovascular events. And what they found is the more like MI/ACS, that means acute coronary syndrome, myocardial infarction, heart attack, stroke, rupturing your aneurysm, and then ventricular arrhythmias, bad heartbeats. And what they found is when you snap, your risk of having any of these events goes up significantly. So when you snap at your kid, when you snap at your coworker, snap at your spouse, get mad at the TV, and actually like release emotion, that puts you at risk. Now, what's interesting is how long does that risk period last? In the studies, they think it's about 2 hours. And this corresponds very well. There's been multiple earthquake studies where there's been an earthquake in California, and they see how many people died of heart attacks from the time of the earthquake. And there's a big spike early on, and about 2 hours, it goes back to normal. So stress, getting mad, all these things are probably a big negative, and it's about a 2-hour risk window. Now, also, if you're living in stress, your telomeres get shorter. Anyone know what a telomere is? The telomere is the caps of your chromosomes, and as your cell gets older, those caps get smaller. So like the chromosome on the left, he's got a lot of caps right here. The older chromosome with the cane glasses has less. So the older your cell is, the telomeres get shorter. So the biological cellular age of your body gets older by stress. Now, okay, who's depressed after hearing all this? All right. Okay. Now, here's a really cool study, though. So we talked about where we are. Now, what can we do about it? If I stop to talk right now, it would be really depressing. But there's actually things you can do. Now, gratitude. Does anyone practice gratitude journaling here? Great. So this has actually been studied. You can't just think it, but you need to say it out loud or write it down in a journal. If you write down 1 to 3 things every day that you're happy about, it actually makes your blood pressure lower, your cortisol level lower, your inflammatory markers lower. It actually makes you biochemically, physically healthier. Now, yes?
If you practice positive affirmations.
Yeah, same idea. I think those are great. Now, what's funny in the study, they go, do not shoot for 5 to 7. Because the people that are trying to find 5 to 7 things that they're happy about did worse. Because if you can't find 5 happy things, you get depressed. Oh, my life is so bad. So they go 1 to 3 is where you want to go. And this is a great quote. I love this. The struggle ends when gratitude begins. When I talk to people that really start thinking about gratitude and being positive, it's amazing how their outlook changes. And bad things happen, and like it's okay. I have these other great things going on. It really buffers. Yes.
What if you do that, but your partner doesn't?
You need to have him, her do it together, maybe. I'll tell you what we do as a family. After family worship, we have gratitude. and we verbally say, everyone in the family, and we always go clockwise because we're just that way, and they say 1 to 3 things they're happy about. And it's actually another cool way to see what's happening in the kid's life. So, and what you may want to do is when you talk to your significant other is don't make it like an exercise. Go, hey, these cool things happened to me today. What happened to you? Because when you set things up like a chore, then sometimes people feel like, oh, this is an exercise, something I have to do, and they don't like it. If you make it spontaneous and they have no clue what you're doing, then you can get it under them. All right. Now, the other thing, and you guys have this, you guys have this in spades here, is going outside. This is an incredible study where they're looking at just living next to a green space, okay, and the impact it has on psychiatric disorders. Every single psychiatric mental health disorder except for schizophrenia goes down if you just have access to green space. The crazy thing about this study is they cannot confirm if you went outside or not. The fact was, did you just have access to it? Could you see it? And there's a whole other thing I didn't put in here. It's called forest bathing. So people that go into the forest, into the woods, take a walk, same thing, blood pressure goes down, cortisol goes down, inflammatory markers go down. It's actually healthy for you. Now, the problem with those studies is very mixed bag. It's like, go outside for 10 minutes or go outside for 4 hours. So the studies are all over the place. But clearly, I think people do feel better, like not in winter, in spring, getting outside, etc. I think we can prove that. So if you look at everything except for schizophrenia, everything gets better with being outside. Now, here is a huge study. 1.2 million people and exercise and mental health. And what they found is people that exercise for 45 minutes a day, 5 times a week, this is kind of like the sweet spot, have the lowest rates of mental health disorders. So I'm not going to ask who's doing that. And you should build up to this. And a good way to start is just walking 5-10 minutes every other day. Let your muscles recover. But when people got to that level, they were doing the best. And here's some different sports. There's actually another slide I'm going to go to talk about the different sports. But basically, anything you did made your mental health better. Now, here's a specific study looking at how exercise counteracts the cardiotoxicity of psychological stress. And what they found really is very interesting here. Stress is just a little bit less dangerous than lipids and smoking, but actually worse than diabetes, high blood pressure, and obesity. That's shocking. But this goes back to the things we talked about at the very beginning of this talk. If you're chronically stressed, it's going to be very difficult to be healthy. What exercise makes you live the longest? Walking. Probably. But in the big studies, basically tennis. You get about 9 years of extra life if you play tennis. Now these are all observational studies. Yeah, pickleball is awesome. No, I'm serious. Pickleball, because there's a couple of factors in tennis. Tennis is kind of aerobic, but most of there is muscle movement, legs, arm. There's pre-planning for using your noggin. Also, tennis, even if it's one-on-one, it's very social. As we all get older, most times it's doubles. So it's even more social. Social interaction is a huge factor in health. And that's why pickleball meets all those check marks as well. Plus, it's a lot cheaper. Now, one problem with tennis and some of these studies is there's what we call confounding factors. We have to be honest. If you're playing tennis, you're probably of a higher socioeconomic status, can afford to go to a tennis club. That's going to make you live longer. That's going to make you healthier because it's easier to live life when you're rich. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Okay, but tennis is a good idea. Pickleball, great idea. And this is a little Venn graph. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but basically stress, the third most important risk factor. And basically, if you have that, your hostility, anxiety, depression all go up. And group exercise, social exercise gives you the maximum benefit. So pickleball, go for it. Golf outing, go for it. Tennis, go for it. Group walk, go for it. Okay. Now, another thing you do is laugh. Who likes laughing? Okay, people didn't raise their hand. I'm really worried about you people. Okay. This is an incredible study. So they took cardiology fellows and they measured their brachial artery in their arm before and after watching Something About Mary or Kingpin or Saving Private Ryan. What do you think happened to your artery resistance watching these two movies?
One was less and one was more.
Yeah, if you watched a comedy and were laughing, your arteries relaxed. Your blood pressure went down. If you're watching Saving Private Ryan, your blood pressure goes up and your arteries get tight. Now, this is incredible because you're not fighting a war. No one's shooting at you. You're just watching a war movie. Start thinking about that, the power of the mind. So anyway, here's the data. And what you can find here is basically all the arteries got bigger watching the comedies. All the arteries except one guy got tighter, stiffer watching the war movie. And this is really interesting. There's always that one person, no matter what, is not going to be happy. And his artery got tighter. Okay. Now, talking about social integration is really, really important. This is a huge study, 34,000 people followed for 24 years. So big study, long follow-out, which is really good. And they found a couple of things that are very interesting here. One, the more social you are, the less likely you are to die. The less social you are, the most likely you are to die. And this was specifically looking at suicide. So social interaction, and this makes obvious sense when you think about loneliness, depression. Being socially integrated makes you much less likely to commit suicide. Now, there's some other interesting factors here. Being married, 40% reduction in suicide risk. And now a lot of people are going to doubt that data here in this room. You get in a fight with your wife or your husband, you get mad, but overall, if you're married, you reduce your risk. The more close relatives you have, lowers your risk. This is really interesting down here, religious attendance. 51% reduction if you go to some kind of religious event one time a week or more. Huge impact. So these are different ways you interact. Even coming here tonight is lowering your chance of death and suicide. Yes?
About pets.
You know what? There is pet data. I didn't include it. It's not the greatest data, but pets seem to make you live longer and be happier. They also make you poorer and sleep less. So it's going to have to be a balance. We just lost our family dog about a month ago, so that was really sad. But overall, for me, I think pets are pretty awesome. Besides exercise, going outside, practicing gratitude, this is really, really important. Forgiving. You got to forgive so you can live. So you've all heard the idea, like hate is like drinking poison and hoping the other person's going to die. The more that we internalize, hold on to our grief, anger, the worse we're going to do. We got to let it go. We can't change other people. Now, this study is a very interesting study. Not really hard science, but it's interesting science. So they had people journal. One group did not journal. Another group journaled about forgiving someone who had hurt them in the past. What they found here, they measured a couple things. First, they went to a hill and they go estimate how many degrees that hill is. The people that did not forgive in the journaling exercise thought the hill was steeper. Kind of fluffy data. This was more interesting. People that forgave could jump higher than people that had not done the forgiveness exercise. And they actually said it was like the proverbial weight was taken off their shoulders so they could jump higher. The stress level had been dissipated. And how do you feel when you've done something wrong and your friend or spouse forgives you? Think about that for a second. Most people feel like a total release, a relief when that happens. This is the kind of impact that forgiving can have. And in these studies, and there's some other studies that talk about this, you don't have to go to the person and say, I forgive you, because that most times will lead to a fight. But if you just forgive them in your own mind and heart and say, I'm not going to hold this grudge anymore, that does a lot for you. Pretty important. Now, here's the last study we're going to talk about. This is a really cool study. So they measured, well, we have DNA, and that DNA makes RNA. The RNA is the blueprint for the proteins to be made and assembled. So in this study, they measured the RNA of certain genes, good and bad genes, before and after you did something nice for yourself or you did something nice for somebody else. And this is really fascinating results here. Hedonic is doing something for yourself. Eudaimonic means doing something for somebody else. And what you can find in the hedonic group, like you went out and buy yourself a purse or something, or a gun or something. I don't know what you did. You did something for yourself. What happened is your pro-inflammatory markers went up. Your antibody production went down. If you did something for somebody else, eudaimonic, worked in a soup kitchen, volunteered somewhere, went to Good Neighbor House, whatever, to help out. Look at this. Your inflammatory markers didn't change much, went down maybe a little bit, but your antibody production went up. Now, when you think of things like COVID, flu season, and life, by helping other people, you're actually increasing your immunity, making yourself healthier and more resistant to getting infected. That's pretty awesome. And think about this. How do you feel when you help other people? Most people feel really good. I have yet to meet the person who consistently is so selfish, cannot stand helping other people. People are like, that was actually really fun. That was really cool. I did something that was beyond me, and they feel good. We're built to want to be social. We're built to want to help other people. So I think this is a really cool study. And so to kind of wrap up here, so this is not mission impossible. This is mission totally possible. So let's think positive. You can achieve your goals. You can be successful. Don't stress. Total waste of time. You can't change other people. You can't change Washington, D.C. You can't change the weather. So why ruminate on that? Practice gratitude. 1 to 3 things a day. Say it out loud. Write it in a journal. Journaling is really cool because you can flip back like a month later and go, oh my God, you have like 100 things you've listed that have been good for you. It's actually pretty cool. Get outside. And even in winter, I get outside in winter, just bundle up, wear a lot of clothes. Exercise. You don't have to be doing CrossFit or anything crazy. Walking is probably the best exercise known to man. In all the studies, people that walk at least 15 minutes consecutively per day makes a difference on your mortality. That's all you need is 15 minutes to start making a difference in your lifespan. Finally, helping others helps you. Thank you for your time and attention.